Mecca is also significant because it is considered the first place on earth that God Almighty was worshipped alone. And so, it was at that very spot that Abraham and his son Ishmael built the first house of worship for God. When Abraham and Ishmael had finished building the sacred house, there was still one brick that had to be put in its place. And so, Abraham sent his son Ishmael off to find a unique stone that he could put there. But God Almighty destined that the final stone that was to be laid would not be from the material of this world, but instead a stone directly from the heart of paradise. The angel Gabriel then brought the stone down to Abraham, who proceeded to put it in its proper place. It is said that when the stone first came down, it was a pure white color. But due to the impurities of this world and the sinfulness of man, the stone slowly began to fade and eventually turned black.
This is the story that Islam teaches, but what they don't tell you is that this site was going on way before they started worshiping Allah, and what it was a house and a place of worship of false idols. Hundreds of years before Muhammad was even alive, someone by the name Amr went off to a distant land, found an idol and brought it back to Mecca. They set it up at Kaaba and they began to worship false idols there.
Amr was so impressed by all that he had seen that before leaving, he asked if he could take one of the idols back home with him. The people agreed, and so Amr took the idol and placed it along with the other goods and merchandise in his caravan. He then set out southwards, back towards the city of Mecca. When Amr arrived back home, he immediately took the idol and placed it right in front of the sacred house. He then proceeded to tell the people that this was now going to be the God that they worship. Sadly, this concept faced little, if no resistance. And as time passed, the people began to worship more and more different idols, until it is said by the end of the 6th century, there were over 360 different idols surrounding the sacred house in Mecca.
One of the main, if not the main, false idol that was worshipped at Kaaba was Baal. Baal was worshipped in pre-Islamic Arabia. He was a human figure and was believed to control acts of divination, such as throwing arrows towards the statue, and the direction that the arrows landed answered a specific question. Some scholars reference Hubal as a lunar deity tied to a trinity of moon, father, sun, mother, and the evening star, the planet Venus, as their son. Interesting, when we look at one of the most well-known symbols of Islam, it's the crescent moon and a star. There's even a story of a father sacrificing his son at Kaaba to one of the gods. Again, this was years, hundreds of years before Muhammad, which means it's hundreds of years before Allah. Abd al-Muttalib was someone who dug a well known as the Zamzam well. The Quraysh tribe tried to stop him from doing it, but one of his sons stood guard and protected against their protest. He vowed that if he were to have 10 sons to protect him, he would sacrifice one of them to the god at Kaaba. As the story goes, he told his 9 sons that he must keep the vow. It's said that the divination arrows that he used fell upon his favorite son, Abdullah, and he went on and sacrificed his son there. Again, the divination arrows were what were used by Baal and those who followed him. Quran sources say that he sacrificed to Allah, but it's clear as day to see here that he was sacrificing to Baal or Baal. Jeremiah 32:35 says, "And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire to Moloch, which I did not command them, nor did it come into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin." A sacrifice to Baal or Baal is a sacrifice to Satan. Islamic sources say he sacrificed his son to Allah, but as we can clearly see, this was a sacrifice to Baal. Jesus proves to us that sacrificing or worshiping or following these false gods is actually doing these things unto Satan. When the Pharisees confronted Jesus for casting out demons from people, Jesus responded saying, "If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? And if I cast out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your sons cast them out?" So here Jesus shows us that Beelzebub or Baal or Baal is actually truly Satan in disguise. So we can conclude that the worship and the following and the sacrificing to Beelzebub, to Baal, or Habal, and that these things were going on at Kaaba were actually the worship and the following of Satan. That's exactly who originally and continually are being worshipped at Kaaba at Mecca. According to Islam, Muhammad was the last and the greatest prophet who taught everything about Islam and about the Quran, but he himself even said that he doesn't know if Allah is the truth. In Quran 34 verse 24, "Say, O Muhammad, to these proselytes and pagans, who gives you provision from the heavens and the earth? Say, Allah, and verily, either we or you are rightly guided or in a plain error." So Muhammad, who's supposedly the greatest teacher and prophet of Islam, says here when debating with others about the identity of God, says there's a chance that he himself may be in great error. He's not solid on his belief on who God is, and I can tell you he was in plain error. If you want to go to the truth, look at John 14:6. Jesus said to him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." I hope you've given yourself fully unto Jesus, and you can confidently say, you are not in plain error. You know the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the only way to God, the only way to heaven, and that's the absolute truth. I pray you all are well. Thanks for watching, and God bless.